Thank you very much for coming. And thank you, Amanda, for the introduction. Thank you, Venerable Vimala and Samita, for invitation. And thank you all for your Dharma path. This is extremely precious in our work, in our time. So I believe that everybody who has come is already practicing patience and diligence or joyous effort, because without that it is very challenging to remain on the Dharma path. And if you could stay on the path and cultivate it, it means that you already have that two qualities and more in your mind, but of course it can be perfected. This is what we will be doing today together. Maybe one technical note: if you have any questions during the session, you can write it in the chat. The questions and answer session will be at the end. But if anything needs clarification in the meanwhile, just feel free to reach out already in the meantime. We all wish to be happy, and nobody wants suffering. So why are we still in the realms of samsara and experiencing, why do we experience all that suffering? The reason is not in lack of wish, it is the lack of understanding what to cultivate and what to abandon to be able to be liberated, and lack of application of what we have learned about that. This makes our path a little bit slower or faster, depending how much we engage in the Dharma. The Buddha said in Anguttara Sutra, one of them in Uddhakarahaka Sutra, he asked the disciple, if you see the pool of water which is muddy, solid, turbid, solid, can you see what is inside? Can you see all the fish and plants and gravel and pebbles? And the disciple said, no, you cannot see it. And the Buddha said, true, you cannot, because the water is muddy. Now, it is not in the nature of water to be muddy. So when the mud subsides, the water is clear and can see clearly. And in the same way, our mind is today sullied or muddied by delusions and afflictions. But if they subside, the nature of our mind is clear and aware. Then we can see more clearly, step by step, we can see more clearly what to cultivate, what to abandon, what leads to suffering, and what leads to happiness, including the ultimate happiness of liberation from any type of suffering, of liberation from samsara. So, normally, samsaric beings see the causes of happiness and suffering outside of themselves. People can say things like, they make me angry, or if I had enough money, my problems would be gone, or similar. But in reality, external conditions are only conditions, they are not the causes of our happiness. The external conditions are usually just the result of our past actions, virtues or unvirtues, while the actual causes come from our mind, from our mental states. Tibetans have a saying, if you want to know what have you been doing in the past lives, look at the conditions where you live in this life. If you want to know your future life, look at what you are doing in this life. How do you respond to that conditions? We can not always choose the conditions in which we find ourselves, but we can choose the response to that conditions. And very often, by the power of eons and eons of unskillful habits, the responses to samsaric conditions can be informed by the three poisons: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. For example, situations that we dislike can be triggering for us, and we can respond with anger or aversion or hatred or anything on this spectrum. Buddha taught us that this is not the only response. We can, in general, people say that response to undesired situations or suffering can be fight or flight, fight or escape. And we know that if we fight against suffering, first of all, it doesn't work. And second, we tend to create even more causes of suffering by that. And depending on the situation, if the cause of suffering is very, very strong or very, and it generates in our mind stream very strong emotional response, it can be good to temporarily remove ourselves from a triggering situation. But on the long run, this also does not remove the poison of anger, aversion, and hatred from our mind. So neither fight nor flight works. Blaming others does not work. Expecting resolution from others does not work. So what does work? Antidotes. Buddha taught us the path to overcome all the delusions. He taught us about selflessness. He taught us about the nature of delusions, the nature of afflictions, and the path to overcome it. And this path ultimately uproots all the afflictions and their causes. And temporarily, we can also counteract them by antidotes. And today's two topics are focused on the antidotes to first, patience is the antidote to aversion, impatience, hatred, all on that spectrum, or irritation also. And joyous effort is the antidote to lack of zeal or laziness And we will see that this word laziness in Buddhism implies much more. Let's start with patience and anger. Because the poison of anger or aversion or hatred is usually triggered by things that we don't like. And if we look in our life, we can see that there are so many things that we might not like. Sometimes it's weather, sometimes it's getting up early, sometimes it's people, and so on. So we have many situations where we can observe our mind and recognize anger and aversion in that, and where we can practice patience, because we do need challenges to be able to practice our skills. Just like in sport, sportsmen can have weights or other things that can make their practice more difficult to be able to develop their stamina or strength or whatever they are training. And in the same way, we need a certain level of mental challenges, triggering situations that can provide us opportunity to train in the virtue that we want to train. So these two opposites, triggering situation and the antidote or virtue that we are trying to practice, they can work together very well. In the scriptures, they describe three objects that give rise to anger, irritation, or impatience. One is very predictably people or sentient beings. We are not always, we don't always have the same wishes or the same methods or the same needs, and this can be challenging sometimes. Second situation is suffering, our personal suffering like pain or sickness or similar. And if anybody is a caregiver or have been in a situation of being caregiver of somebody, we can observe that many times people who are in pain or similar can be angry, and it is nothing personal to us. It's just a response to pain and suffering. And the third situation that gives rise to anger, irritation, and impatience, or similar, are external conditions such as war, or if we are stung by nettles when we go for a walk. A person can stumble against a stone and fall and get angry at the stone, although the stone has no bad intention, but we can get angry to that, just like we get angry to people, even if people did not have a bad intention necessarily. So it's good to know what are our Achilles heels, what situation is we need to be particularly attentive to, so that at that situation we remember to practice. And there's another description about triggering situations, and this is in two. Either we can get angry either when somebody is not kind to us or anybody or our loved ones, or if somebody is kind to those we don't like, we have challenging situations with, and that person gets success or praise and so on, this can also trigger irritation or impatience or something similar, dislike, aversion in our mind. These are also possible situations. So we can see that there are plenty of possible situations that can trigger anger and impatience in our life. And how do we respond to that? And we saw we have help. One help is that in the immediate situation, where our emotions start to rise or have already risen, we can take refuge. This is something that is very simple method, and because the mind cannot be fully focused on two things at once, if you remember the Buddha, the path, the Sangha, the three jewels, our mind can quickly sober. It's very similar to taking deep breath or other methods like that. But more importantly, it is on the long run good to, on one side, work with afflictions and antidotes, so that the afflictions do not erupt and the antidotes can diminish them. And ultimately, working on the path, we can remove also the roots of the afflictions themselves, any seed, any trace of affliction, so any potential is also gone. That's why the paramitas, for example, paramita of patience and paramita of joyous effort, are called perfections or paramitas, because they can be mastered to the highest perfection, to the ultimate perfection, like the Buddha had. Patience is defined as a mental state, as a mental arising that has the ability to not be perturbed, because absence of patience removes the peace of our mind. So patience enables us, gives us ability to stay calm and clear-minded in the face of turbulence. First with little turbulence, then with a little bit higher and higher, and this increases through time. And this increase of patience and stability of mind, a peace of mind, can bring us great joy. Because in samsara, because the nature of samsara is suffering, we will meet many situations that we don't like. This is inevitable, so we shouldn't be shocked when something like that happens. And we can ask ourselves, is there any benefit of suffering at all? And from the Buddhist perspective, there is. First, a practical question. When did you mature and grow the most? If you look at your life as a whole, when did you mature and grow the most? Was this in the situation at the time where everything went according to your plans, according to your wishes, just like you're used to? Or was it at the time when you were facing challenges, when things were difficult? Maybe you even thought you couldn't, it is too much, but you overcame that. All people that have asked that question, they said that they grew in challenges, not during the predictable habitual situations. So there is a benefit of challenging situations, even if they were hard and difficult. And another argument found in the scriptures is suffering reduces arrogance, pride. It redirects us from the path of negative karma, of creating negative karma and strengthening our afflictions, to the path of virtue. If you are lucky enough to to know the teachings of karma, of cause and result, cause and effect. And it also makes us more compassionate for any form of suffering. Anger is harmful in many ways. In the scriptures, it is described as imagine that this is red hot coil, like burning piece of coil or wood, and you try it, you pick it up to throw it to somebody you're angry at. You don't know if you would really hit that person or not, but you know that you will burn yourself. And this is what anger does. Does it harm others or not? I don't know. We don't know. Maybe. But it for sure harms our own mind. Probably nobody is happy when they are angry. It's a state of suffering by itself, and it causes further suffering to other beings and to ourselves. It creates further problems in relations, in our karmic, creating karmic causes which lead to suffering, and so on. It makes the negative habits of anger stronger. Patience is antidote to anger, irritation, and aversion, and it has many, many benefits. The main one I already mentioned, it makes the mind unperturbed, peaceful, and clear. With that wider picture, we can see the situation better. We know how to act, when not to act. We are not motivated by our habituation, but we can think clearly, meaning that the result will be also better. And it helps us grow on the path. We need patience on the Dharma path as well. And this way the scriptures describe three types of patience. One is patience with people. For example, when we are harmed by others, we don't need to defend ourselves immediately. We don't need to respond tooth for a tooth. We have much more skillful ways to respond. Second is managing physical and mental pain, which also requires patience. And we can understand in such situation that these are results of the past karma, but our responses to that can, while this karma is burning out, our responses to that can help us on the Dharma path. For example, by cultivating patience. And the third one is certitude of the Dharma. This is how it is called, when it refers mostly on practicing of shamatha or concentration or samadhi, however one calls that, which requires quite strong perseverance and also patience when facing obstacles. There's another classification of the types of patience very similar to that, just to mention. One is patience in enduring the suffering or enduring hardship. like physical and mental. Second is patience of not retaliating or accepting harm. And the third one is patience of realizing the truth or realizing the non-arising or phenomena, non-self. Third one is always Dharma because it does require a certain level of perseverance or forbearance, resilience also. We can see through all that has been said that patience is not a passive state. It gives us strength to be able to face the situation in a calm, clear way and act according to the situation selflessly. So now, with this, I conclude the theoretical part. We'll do a little meditation on patience, and after that, we'll have a break. So we can start by adjusting our body and mind. Body so that we can find a good position to sit and check that our body is relaxed, our spine is straight, and we can adjust our mind too, so that with the motivation that this practice benefits us to cultivate patience and all other virtues to benefit ourselves and all beings connected to us. We can think about anger and situations that trigger our anger. And think how anger does not benefit us in any way, neither ourselves nor others. Only creates problems. If somebody harms us, the situation is already done and it cannot be undone. So what is the benefit of anger? It just creates more negative karma. We cannot choose what we will experience, but we can choose our response. We can recall how much better we feel when we are patient and our mind is at peace than when we are perturbed. We can think how much better result to our life in every single situation it is if we remain patient in that situation and respond to it by patience, from a patient state of mind instead of anger. We can think how cultivating patience in everyday life generates very strong, stable habit of patience, which will be need to for our spiritual path to attain the samadhis and ultimate realizations. and we can generate a very strong determination to cultivate patience, bringing peace, stability, and clarity in our mind, so that peace, stability, and clarity remain in order in our mind in all situations, regardless how turbulent our environment might be. Open our eyes and have a little break, I think 5 minutes. Welcome back. So in the meanwhile, we got a question. What is the difference between affliction and delusion? And this is an excellent question. They are both translations of klesha. And in Tibetan and in Sanskrit, I think in Pali is also something similar as klesha, isn't it? Yeah.
I think that at least in Pali, I would think affliction would and delusion are two different things, and not the
Oh,
same
in which
translation.
way? In which way?
Well, delusion or ignorance would be avidya, which is basically the cause of all problems. And an affliction is a kilesa or something like that. So that would be something that like the hindrances, something that like anger would be a kilesa, and then it can be very subtle things as well.
Yeah. It comes to the same as I intended. Thank you so much, Venerable Vimala. Always good to learn. Yeah, so what I had in mind when I was talking about afflictions and delusions, I had in mind klesha, or in Tibetan nyomok. And the key one, the source of all the problems is avidya, is ignorance. So it comes to the same. The emphasis is a little bit different. When I say, I mean, in English, there are many translations, including mental disturbances and so on. Let me check. But the emphasis, disturbing emotions, is also one of the common ones. So the emphasis is different. When we say disturbing emotions, it emphasizes to emotional states which lack the peaceful, open, clear state of mind. Delusions are emphasizing the underlying ignorance, just like you said. Afflictions, it emphasizes the result that it afflicts suffering to oneself and others. It's an excellent question because it's good to be clear about that things. So we came to the joyous effort, and joyous effort is essential for this paramita, for this perfection, because any type of, it has other translations again too, for example, zeal or similar, diligence, and so on. But if it is worldly diligence, for example, I don't know, learning calligraphy or learning language or anything like that, or even shooting, one can be very diligent, but it is not regarded as one of as the paramita of diligence or zeal, because this one is directly related to joy. It is defined as a joy or delight in practicing virtue. So it has to be focused on virtuous activity and experiencing joy in that. And this is very important on our path. In Tibetan tradition, we have, we talk about 6 paramitas. The upper ones are, we talk about otherwise in other scriptural chapters or texts or sources. But the lower 3, the generosity, ethics and patience, are regarded as something that everyday person, religious or not, ordained or not, can practice to benefit, to ripen the positive karma and virtue states in the future. But the upper 3, starting with the joyous effort and then concentration and wisdom, have been in the past traditionally more reserved for the monks and nuns, for the ordained people, because they have dedicated their full life to Dharma, and they have more conditions for that traditionally. So in this way, the joyous effort is directly connected to the Dharma path, to concentration and wisdom. It opens the door for that. The paramitas can be seen as stepping stones. We can practice all of them, but it can be still seen also as stepping stones, one leading to another. So for zeal or joyous effort, it is said that it is the basis, the foundation of all the virtues. Because from that motivation, joyous motivation and joyous actions and so on, we get the motivation and energy and actual application of the practice, so that our path grows. The joyous effort is the antidote for laziness and procrastination and for distractions. So in our non-virtuous time, in our degenerate time, full of different distractions, we can see again that we have plenty of opportunities to practice. We don't lack that opportunities. And we can again see that that situations can be opportunity for practice. Again, we can see that afflictions and antidotes can work together. When we face something challenging us to engage in distractions, we can mentally remove ourselves from attachment to that and refocus on what we actually want to do, decide to do. Since it is the antidote to laziness, it's good to see how laziness is described in Dharma, in Buddhist scriptures, which is not always the same as we would think in everyday life. There are three types. First is laziness of procrastination, or engaging in distractions, or simply not wanting to do something because because of laziness. We all know that type of laziness. And the second one is laziness of attachment to other activity, being very busy of things we want to do to avoid things we need to do. For example, a friend of mine who, when he was young, whenever he had to do the homework or study or something similar, he took a lot of time to prepare the pencils, prepare the chair, clean the table. This was not studying yet. And when he sat, he remembered that he has to do this, and sat and came back and sit and remembered that he had to do something third. And his mother was losing nerves because he was intelligent enough to finish school. And but we can find such situations also in our life when we decide to do something which is unpleasant or difficult, and we can get busy with everything. We can clean the entire house instead of doing the work that we have to do. So work can definitely be a type of laziness. We can take it as an excuse to not do what we are planning to do, what we are not used to do, what is not easy for us. Sometimes Dharma is not easy for us. We have been habituated for worldly activities for eons and eons, and Dharma can be challenging. It does not always bring results over the night. It requires a certain level of patience. So being busy with too many worldly activities can be a type of laziness. And the third one is laziness of despondency, of self-contempt, of thinking, I cannot do that. Now, again, it's good to keep in mind the situation itself, because when it comes, for example, to mental problems like clinical depression, this is not laziness. I think it's quite clear. But we probably can find in our own life situations when we didn't want to learn something, but just said, I cannot do that. I don't know how to do that, and left others to deal with the situations. So that lack of confidence and lack of trust in our abilities is regarded in such situations as laziness. And the antidote in that particular situation is just remembering that if we practice anything, we can overcome our limitations. We can remember Angulimala. If Angulimala can walk on the path, we can do that too. And we can again check in our mind which type of laziness is the most prevalent in our life, and work on that primarily. Laziness prevents us from engaging in what we actually want to do, and it distracts us from that. So if we want to fulfill our goals, we have to overcome that and engage in joyous efforts. There are 3 types of joyous effort. This is one classification. One is armor-like joyous effort. It means that we take joy in the challenges of practicing Dharma, in and see how we progress through time. If we just imagine how we acted in a challenging situation a year or 2 or 5 years ago, and if we look at it now, it can bring us true, real joy in Dharma, you know. Second type of joyous effort is joyous effort of acting constructively. This means joy in putting in challenge, if being diligent in by discriminating well what to practice and what to not. And in everyday life, there are all kinds of situations. And if we look at our mind, if we don't look only outside, if we look at our mind, we can recognize all kinds of emotions, mental states arising from our mind. Some are virtues, and we can rejoice about them, we can cultivate them, we can enhance them. And some are not so virtuous, and we can dissolve them, we can stop them, we can redirect our mind somewhere else. So this is the second time. And the third joyous effort is joy of helping sentient beings, because there are so many beings who have no guidance, no good example, no support in any way. And this brings us joy of being able to help others. And we can see that the more we walk on the path, the more clear our mind is, the more we are able to actually help others, if they are willing to be helped, if they want to be helped. And 5 types of, the joyous effort can be divided also on 5 types. And we can again see in these opportunities to feel joy in practicing virtue. The first one is prior to engaging in virtue. And this is called diligence of armoring. Like a knight takes on an armor which protects him from harm already before entering a challenging situation or situations which require some effort. We can feel joy of facing that challenge. Like again, people in sports sometimes feel that. Looking forward for the practice, even though it will be challenging. And second one, diligence of application, refers to the diligence or joy that we feel during the engaging in virtuous activities. And the third one is diligence of non-discouragement, which is referring to the not being discouraged when even if it takes a long time to practice, we can still feel the joy to be on the path, not expecting the result over time, but we can still rejoice in being on the path which cultivates virtue. The fourth one is the diligence of non-reversal. This refers to the time when we face obstacles. So we can practice Dharma, for example, or we can practice a certain paramita or virtue, and obstacles come to that. These situations can change a little bit, can become more challenging than before. Something new comes, more challenging situations at once can gather faster in our life. Nevertheless, by understanding, having the bigger picture, by understanding the value of practicing Dharma, for example, we can persevere and also through that, and we can feel joy that even in such challenging situations, we didn't give up our virtue, our Dharma, our peace. Or even if we lose temper, because we are human beings, we cannot expect from ourselves to be a Buddha. So even if we do not act in a way that we think it would be perfect, but we after that reflect on that, this is still virtue. This is still being on the path. This is still how we learn to cultivate virtue. So we can rejoice in that too. And the last one is called diligence of non-indolence. It means that the diligence of not being content with our present state, but being very happy, delightful that we can practice further and further and further. So the scriptures define also 4 powers that increase our joyous effort. And the first power is aspiration. By being on the Dharma path, we already probably all of us have the aspiration for Dharma, aspiration for virtue. And on that basis, the stronger the aspiration for Dharma, the stronger our joy will be in practicing virtue. Second one is a resolution, to generate in our mind a firm and stable resolution. There's a big difference between just wishful thinking and actually taking a firm decision. I will practice Dharma. Just wishful thinking is can be gone with the wind very quickly, while a firm resolution is something that is more ingrained in our mind. It is like a moral obligation to ourselves, very similar to that. So it makes our practice of or joyous effort or any practice much more stronger and much more stable. And the power of joy increases everything. It's just like looking children who enjoy learning, who consider learning as a game, as a play, and learn this way. Or when somebody is a musician and they really, really enjoy their practice or discovering new ways of playing an instrument or new challenges also on their learning path. And they're looking forward, they can't wait to come next time to the practice. That joy increases our zeal and all our practices with that, because the joyous effort indeed by itself is strengthening all every single practice and every single virtue that we have, because it's joy in virtue, in activity. And the last one, which increases joyous effort, is moderation and rest. Because pushing ourselves is not what is meant with joyous effort. It kills joy. Being honest to ourselves and understanding what our present conditions, inner and outer conditions are, is much more constructive for our practice. And by resting when we need to rest, keeping the moderation, we can still keep in mind that through time, step by step, increase, but not all at once. So all that practices increase our joy in practice, in practicing virtue. And we can to give some space to questions and answers later. Yeah, I would mention perhaps two more things. One is that whatever we cultivate becomes stronger through time. So when we do pay attention to in our everyday life, not just once per week or once per month, but in our everyday life, when we pay attention where our mind is and which situations we encounter, are they that situation challenging, and if they are, how to respond in the best way. That habit of overcoming challenges, cultivating virtue, joy in virtue will increase. It will become stronger. If we just live from day to day without any awareness, the habits that we have been cultivating through eons and that kept us in samsara, we will continue to cultivate that. So for that reason, there are two practices, particularly the joyous effort, diligence, are regarded as very important for our path. And no matter how big or small now is, even if it is very, very small, it doesn't matter, because from small come from very, very small, it can grow into very small. From very small can grow to small. From small can grow to neutral. From neutral can grow to little big, and so on to bigger and bigger. And the process itself can bring us joy. The reality that we are on the Dharma path, that we came to this Dharma path, can bring us joy, because it is so rare to find that conditions that we do have now. If you just think of all the beings of this universe, and even if you take just this earth, of all the beings abiding in our universe, in our part of samsara, how many are born in the human, have a human body? Very, very few. Of all the ants, and even all the among all the visible beings, of all the ants, insects, wild animals, and so on, they are bound to their instincts. They cannot choose much. They burn their karma. They create new karma without much choice, without more or less any choice. Very little. While being born in a human realm, we have the most perfect possible conditions. So we must have created enormous amount of positive karma to come into that condition. And among all the humans in this world, we are probably in the 1%, 2, 3, 5 maximum probably percent who can choose what to do with their life. Large amount of the world is either living day to day, just striving for survival, living in wars, in hunger, don't not having the conditions to choose what to do with their life from cultural reasons, from socio-economical reasons, from whatever reasons. And we have that luxury of not having only born in human form, but having the precious human rebirth, where we can actually practice Dharma, choose to do that. And nobody and nothing prevents us from that, except ourselves if we do. And this means that even larger amount of very, very, very strong amount of positive karma. And if I think of all people who have that conditions and have come in contact with Dharma, most of them heard of, I don't know, Dalai Lama or Theravada teachers, or saw the Buddha in, I don't know, on TV and in a shop, a statue. But they don't engage in that. They see, hear, and live. To recognize a value in Dharma, it is very, very rare, and it requires much more positive imprints from the past. And to actually not only stay in contact like a hobby, but actually engage in Dharma, take it as one's own personal path, dedicate oneself to actually applying, practicing what has been taught, to dedicate oneself to studying what the Buddha was saying, contemplating what is the Buddha's intent, and then meditating on that, internalizing that, applying that in everyday life. This is super rare. And we can be really, really, really grateful to both ourselves in all the past lives, in this life, and to all the teachers and lineage masters who have been preserving and containing Dharma from generation to generation. So it also leads to a kind of responsibility. From my perspective, it also leads to a sense of responsibility and joy in continuing this path and seeing how rare it is. I can also see how much any person who is practicing Dharma is beneficial for everybody around us who is lost in the darkness of ignorance. Just like a lamp illuminates a space which is dark, so a Dharma person can illuminate the path to other beings who are lost in samsara. And this also, for me, brings another reason to practice Dharma and another layer of joy in practicing Dharma. And with that in mind, we can do a little meditation, starting with adjusting our body and mind. Body so that we sit comfortably, that our back is straight, our spine is straight yet relaxed. And we can again invite all beings that are connected to us to do the practice with us. You can think how lucky we are to be able to practice the Dharma. Now we can focus a little bit to what obstructs our practice. What are our main obstacles? Is this what type of laziness? Is this procrastination? Is this attachment to samsaric activities? Or is this despondency, lack of self-confidence? You can think about what are our priorities really? What makes life meaningful? What is really important in our life? And think about the value of virtue. Contemplate about the benefits of joyous effort, how it increases every single of other virtues. Joy in virtue overcomes fatigue and laziness. It is like a wind to the sail when we are sailing. Little joy in virtue is like little wind in the sail, little progress. Big joy in virtue is like strong wind and great progress. And we can increase that joy, for example, by contemplating on the value of Dharma, value of virtue. We can think about the benefits of Dharma to this life and future life, for ourselves and for others. And we can establish a strong aspiration to pursue the Dharma. Keep it steady and persistent in our practice with the life. not getting discouraged if it takes long time or if we meet obstacles. Practicing moderation in rest, paying attention to our needs, our current situation. So that we can continue to cultivate joy and delight in cultivating virtue. To attain ultimate liberation, no matter how long it takes, how much effort it takes. Because this is the ultimate freedom from suffering and ultimate bliss that benefits ourselves and others alike. And slowly open our eyes. Stretch a little bit if necessary.